Hello and welcome to CS264. This is Lecture 6 and this is Lesson 3. In this lesson we're going to look at inheritance using C#. Again, it's an object-oriented programming core fundamental concept, and we've already looked at some of the fundamentals already, but we've mentioned inheritance in the very first lessons. So, and again, you will have seen this topic before when you were studying Java, and the examples here refer to C#, but they also, you could apply all these to Java as well. Okay, so I suppose what's important is to first think about the different kinds of inheritance. Well, we know already that inheritance is where a class inherits data members and properties and methods from a parent class. Or you might have a class having subclasses. There's lots of language around this, of course, as well, and you choose the language that suits you. Okay, but at the core, inheritance comes in many different forms. So, and not all are supported in C#, nor Java, in fact. The different types are single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. So single inheritance then, let's look at the first one. So that occurs here when a class extends another single class only. It extends one class only. So the UML diagram here shows that class B extends only one class, and that class is class A. We also say that class A is the parent class of class B. And we can say that class B is a child class of class A. Or we can say it's a subclass of class A. There's lots. We use this open diamond to indicate the parent class here. Okay. Single inheritance. Multiple inheritance then occurs when one class extends more than one base class. Okay. In other words, the derived class will have multiple parents. That means that the derived class will have to manage the dependency on two or more base classes. Multiple inheritance tends to be rarely used in software projects as it can lead to problems within the hierarchy. You might have unwanted complexity when you're further extending the classes and so forth. And most modern object-oriented programming languages like Java and C# do not directly support multiple inheritance. C#, however, does support multiple inheritance, but we're working with C++, I should say, does support multiple inheritance, but we're working with C#, which doesn't, okay? So here we see, class B inherits from class X and from class Y. It's actually possible to overcome this limitation in C# and Java using interfaces, okay? In other words, we use interfaces to achieve multiple class inheritance, or multiple class-like inheritance. Okay, so using interfaces, class B, which is shown in the up diagram here, okay, can get the features of class A and interface B. Okay, so it's that should be class X, I should say. Okay, because I've changed it here. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, you'll notice here the UML that I've set this up as an actual interface. Okay, I'm telling it it's dealing that the class X is a class and interface Y is an interface, and that's why this is italicized. Okay, we could actually show you over here. I'm hiding the circles that we have as designators of the class. So if I just hide this, you can see an interface and classes and so forth. Okay. But I just leave these out because it's a bit clearer, but maybe it's not clear. Okay, so that's it. Multiple inheritance. You inherit from two parents, if you like. So we have multi-level inheritance then, and you can see what happens here. We have class C extends class B, which extends class A. So it's when a class can inherit from a derived class, making the derived class as the base class for a new class. So you can see the UML diagram. It's fairly straightforward as well. Okay, so you can have this hierarchical structure for multi-level inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance then, that occurs when one class is inherited by many subclasses. In other words, when classes B, C, and D are all subclasses of class A. Class A is the parent class or base class to all of these classes. So that's kind of a hierarchical inheritance. Finally, we might have hybrid inheritance. And that occurs when you have this combination of single and multiple inheritance. It can be achieved in C# using interfaces. You can also implement it in Java using interfaces. I'm not giving an example because I don't think we'll use one or encounter it. And if we do, we'll talk about it then. Okay, so we're interested in a C# program. So I think for this particular one, I managed to get all of the examples that we need in here, and I'll show you how it works, and then we can run the program. So the program is called MyInheritance. We load it here. It should be here somewhere. Yeah, there it is, MyInheritance. Okay, so it's here, and we'll it's, yeah, not too long, so it should be fine. Let's go back to this program. Okay, so how did it happen? So I've set up a base class A and a base class B. So I'm going to use this one, base class A, to demonstrate single inheritance. I'm going to use base class B to demonstrate hierarchical inheritance later in the program. I'm going to set up two interfaces, interface X and interface Y. Now these all do nothing, okay, because it's just to show you the structures. Okay, so here's how we derive a single class, class 1, from the base class. Okay, so we use this colon notation in order to make that happen. Okay, we have a derived class from a single class and a single interface, so we can have a derived class. Derived class 2 is derived from the base class B and interface X, so that's okay. Okay, we have a derived from a single class and multiple inheritance. So we'd have derived class 3 has base class B as its base class and two interfaces. Okay, so that's okay. Okay. Now, if we try to derive from multiple base classes, this is not possible. Okay, because C# doesn't allow this. So we could have derived class 4 deriving from base class A and base class B. That doesn't happen because we don't allow multiple inheritance in this way in C#. So now we have again derived class 5 from base class B and two interfaces as well. So that's okay. Okay. So we can have multi-level inheritance. Derived class 6 comes from derived class 3. Okay, so because derived class 3 was derived from base class B and these two interfaces. So we can have this really complex hierarchy here. Okay, and so we can just create examples of each of these, and it's fairly straightforward here. Okay, okay. Here's an interesting line here. What happens when we say, okay, so we say base class E is a new derived class 1. These are interesting structures. And interface F is a new derived class 5. So how are we doing this? What's happening here? So we're being very specific about this here. Okay. There's a reason we would do this kind of structure here. Okay, and you should be thinking about that. Okay, so I've included some declarations that, as I said, these last two should be quite thought-provoking. Wonder what is actually happening here. The mark with this double question mark here. Try to think about what might be happening here before you actually try to run it and do some study. Okay. This program probably does very little. Let's have a look though. It probably just runs. So it's nothing, didn't give any errors. And the whole idea was to be able to look and see how this works and that we don't generate any errors. Okay. So here's a concrete inheritance example using classes and interfaces. Okay, it's a working program. Interfaces can extend other interfaces, not just classes, and that gives us extra options for creating hierarchies. Don't be looking for complex hierarchies. Just look for the hierarchy that matches what you need to be able to do in terms of your model. Okay, so let's have a look here. Okay. So I have an interface A here, and it has two methods, I method 1 and I method 2, and it's avoiding that we don't implement the methods in the interface. The extending class needs to do this. Okay, so there's no implementations. Then we have an interface B. Okay, and it extends interface A. Okay, so it's just declarations again, no implementations. So interface A has two methods, and interface B essentially has three methods. So now let's declare a class B. That inherits interface B. So interface B. So it needs to implement three methods. So method 1, hello for method 1, method 2, hello for method 2, and method 3, hello for method 3. Okay, and then we can run the program C1, C2, and we can call those methods. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. Okay, so that's not too difficult to understand. Again, I probably have a piece of code for you that this was called my interface, and yeah, it's there. So you'll be able to look and know this program yourself. Okay. Now I have one called My Two Interfaces, and the code is available for you as well. And I guess what I wanted to show you here, let's say you have a base class. So you have some class and it implements some interface. But you're implementing two interfaces. So we have interface I1 and interface I2. But both of these interfaces expect you to implement a method called iMethod. Okay. So, that's just because it's the way these were designed. Okay. You're using somebody else's classes, maybe, for example. Okay. So let's have a look at this. So now let's see what happens. So class A then, okay, it extends I1 and I2. So now if we want to implement this method here, we preface it with the interface name. So we can say, here's I1 method and iMethod, and here's I2 iMethod. Okay, and we can actually call this method here and this method here. And what we do is, if we're interested in just using this one or this one, we specify the object instead of defining it with the class A. Essentially, we use the interface name. We want to be able to call the interface I1 method from within this class A class called object I1, then we preface it with I1 and I2. Okay, so it's very straightforward. Okay, and you can actually create an object of class A. See what happens. Okay, see what happens. But if you try to do this, okay, I'm not going to do it. Okay, I suppose what's important really is that there's lots to learn about interfaces that help with the model design, and I'd recommend you spend and research some time understanding C# interfaces and also maybe interface references, which I haven't had time to look at here. So it'd be definitely worthwhile doing that. It's actually possible to create a reference variable of an interface type. In other words, create an interface reference variable. That's what this is about. And these variables can refer to any object that implements its inheritance, and they're very useful applications. Okay, have a look at this kind of thing. Okay, so that's very useful. Okay, interfaces are great because they really help with inheritance, and this particular lesson was about inheritance. And I know you've done inheritance before, and I just wanted to maybe give you some flavor of the kind of things you can do with C# and inheritance that you might not have seen before when you programmed in Java. Okay, thank you very much for watching.